And on tonight's segment, I'm joined by Teresa Njoroge, CEO and founder of Clean Start Kenya. Now, thank you so much for joining us for this bulletin, and we can delve deep into, International Women's Day theme, Invest in Women, Accelerate Progress.
Happy International Women's Month, Gloria, and thank you so much for having me. I'm so grateful to be here. This is one of my favorite months when we get to celebrate women, because at Clean Start Africa, we work primarily with women, girls and children. For us, it's women who have been impacted by the criminal justice system, so in prisons, reintegrating and rebuilding their lives post imprisonment, and also to see how best we prevent them going through that criminal justice pathway.
Happy International Women's Day to you too.
Thank you. Thank
now,
you very much.
maybe when we begin, you can tell me what inspired you to start this particular organization.
What inspired me was actually a pain point when I got firsthand impacted by the criminal justice system, just seeing how avoidable, how unfair, and how left behind women are who go through the criminal justice system. When I personally went through a miscarriage of justice through the criminal justice system. So that firsthand experience of being falsely accused, maliciously prosecuted, and ending up being wrongfully incarcerated to serve a sentence, a one-year sentence with my daughter, that firsthand experience, my own, and then witnessing what other hundreds of women go through, and then seeing the many challenges on one hand, but on the other hand, seeing the many opportunities of making it better is what inspired me to set up Clean Start.
Thank you so much for your response. And maybe now as we continue, during that particular time when you were incarcerated, how did it feel like for you as an individual? Because now you're from your particular normal life, and now this is a new environment that you're facing, and as you've mentioned, with a child. So what was that like for you?
You know, I'm so glad that you asked that question, because as so many conversations are going on, we're celebrating International Women's Month, so many research projects are being done, policies and so on and so forth. There are millions of women, as we sit right here, who are suffering as they go through the prison system. You know, as we celebrate this International Women's Month globally, the prison population for women and girls is at 740,000, close to 1 million. And this population is growing up, is growing at a pretty high rate. Since 2000, the prison population has grown by 60%. And these are women who are vulnerable, these are women who are marginalized, and these are women who have been through very difficult pathways that have led them to the criminal justice system. And let me tell you something, prison is not a place where you take someone to then think about how better you could have done it, because the trauma that these women and girls go through, it's very difficult in prison. And undoing the trauma, undoing the wounds that these women, girls, and children go through when they're taken to prison, if it ever heals, it takes a very long time and it's very expensive. In short, to say that if we can find a different route to handle the social economic issue that has led the woman to commit the petty offense like hawking or loitering and many other petty offenses, because a lot of these women go to prison due to non-violent offenses. Let us truly take them on different pathways and not to prison, because prison is very tough for women, and especially as caregivers of their families. So I would say it's not easy. Prison is not easy. Yeah.
Now, maybe let's bring it locally. As you've mentioned that there's a higher percentage of women in prison because of petty offenses. And I remember the previous Interior Cabinet Secretary, Matiang'i, he had actually put out a gazette notice to have most of the petty offenders to be removed from prison. So as your organization, have you made observations that that has been put in place? Because now there's been an influx of actual prisoners locally, which is also a disadvantage to the prison system and how things now happen in that particular sector.
Another amazing question. Thank you, Gloria. In addition to observing how the decongestion and diversion of those who are incarcerated works, we've actually participated in supporting in that decongestion. As lately as December, we received some women from Langata Women Maximum Prison who were released through the decongestion community service orders efforts. And we received them back into society through our organization to support them rebuild their lives post-imprisonment. Because without support to reintegrate back into society, then that makes the decongestion and the diversion not work, because the women will go back to the very same root cause of what took them to prison in the first place. If she was hawking, she'll go back to hawking. If she was loitering, she'll go back to loitering. Actually, when they leave prison, it's much worse, because now they even have a criminal record on top of being poor and not having employment and other support. So, yes, Honorable Matiang'i, former Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Interior, and many other leaders, including our current Honorable Chief Justice, Lady Justice Martha Koome, who has such forward-looking visions, i.e. the STARGE, social transformation through access to justice, a vision that she has launched and continues to implement to see to it that there is access to justice that brings social transformation in Kenya, which is incredible and phenomenal. What I would say is that while all these phenomenal visions and plans and programs are being implemented, we need to come together and collaborate and address the root causes of why primarily the women came to the criminal justice system in the first place. The common denominator is poverty. Poverty is one of the driving root causes of why these women are coming to prison. Poverty, the unemployment, underemployment, sexual gender-based violence, the lack of access to justice because they cannot afford legal representation, mental illnesses, and so on and so forth. And then while those are things they do, there's also then the penal code, which allows for these petty offenses to be criminalized, so that if a woman is arrested loitering, she's then convicted on the according to the penal code and taken to prison. So we need to look at it two ways. One, the social economic issues that these women are committing that have been criminalized, we need to decriminalize them. So for instance, loitering is not a crime, or hawking in the streets. Those are activities that are no harm to society, meaning we can correct them in other ways other than taking them to prison. So if we do that, then we're going to make sure that in the very first place, these people are not ending up in prison. Secondly, they're not going to congest those prisons. And then thirdly, they're not being separated from their children and from their families. And then fourth, they're not being traumatized, and the taxpayers' money is not being used to correct things that would have otherwise been corrected in another way. In other words, we could have used the taxpayers' money in a better manner.
Yeah.
While that is said and done, on the side of the system, we need to make sure that we delete all the penal offenses that no longer serve us: loitering, hawking, and many other petty offenses that are in our penal code that no longer serve us. And then when it comes to other levels within the criminal justice system, then we should apply diversion, alternative dispute resolutions. There are just so many options that can be used to see to it that the poor and vulnerable amongst us in society don't end up in prison. And the more we continue not doing what we're supposed to do in all these areas, the more we continue to see to it that 74% of people in prison are the poor who committed petty offenses. And what does that mean? That means that rehabilitation is not taking place the way it is meant to take place in those prisons. So those prisons are not even doing the job they're meant to do, which is to keep those who are danger to society away from society, one. Two, to rehabilitate them so that the time they'll be ready to come back to society, they're ready to come and continue living with us in society. That job can't be done well if we're taking every Tom, Dick, and Harry we find to prison. But if we remove the poor, those who are not harmed to society, and continue correcting them and investing in them while they're in society, prisons will be able to do their work and they'll be able to do it well. But while it is congested, this plan is not working.
Yeah, I caught something when you told me that you are actually in a vulnerable position where it was not only you who got arrested, but now you had to come with your own daughter. Now, your daughter didn't partake in whatever crime you were accused of or pushed to. So were there maybe measures put in place to protect your daughter or even women who are in prison and also in the same situation where they have children at a certain age who are accompanying them? Are there measures that have been put in place or policies to be able to protect that particular child? Are there dietetic, maybe diets that have put in place so that they can also be able to support them in specific ways?
There has been quite some progression on the right. We're on the right path in the sense that even the former Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Matiang'i, before he was done with his term, launched the children policy, children of incarcerated parents policy in July of 2022. So that policy was launched, and there's so much more further progress that is being made to see to it that children of incarcerated parents are being taken care of. But while I say that, and in the very beginning of this conversation, I said, even as we're developing policies and coming up with so many plans, there are so many women, girls, and children who are still suffering, even as we have this conversation. And what do I mean by that? You know, Gloria, today, even as we're coming up with all these progressive policies, there are lives of people who are in danger. Today, the 11th of March 2024, there's a woman who was incarcerated today, whose children are all by themselves tonight. Even as we're coming up with all these policies, that child tomorrow will not have something to eat, tonight, they will not have someone to protect them. Their schooling is endangered because mom was probably arrested while trying to fend for this child, but now mom has been taken away. Who has been left caring for this child? And so, to answer your question, I would say, while on one hand, there has been some progress in terms of policies, programs being developed, there is still a lot of work that needs to be done for this invisible, innocent child who it's not their crime, yet it is their sentence because we're punishing the mother. These children suffer a lot, you know, and there's no one caring for them other than a few stakeholders who offer of themselves to care for these children. We have not seen a comprehensive government approach to care for children of incarcerated parents, whether the parent is a father or whether the parent is a mother who has now been put into prison. But even as we look at that, Gloria, I am tempted to ask a question. Why put the child in danger's way separated from the primary caregiver, the mother or the father, for something that has an alternative. Why primarily separate that child from their primary caregiver for an action that the parent was involved in? There is no harm to society. For example, the father or the mother was found loitering, or they were found hawking in the streets. Why separate that parent from the child, lock them up in prison, and then now start figuring out how to care for this child through institutions or through secondary caregivers? It really doesn't make sense. Yeah. Why not empower this father or this mother to then be able to be in a position to care for their child? You see, the long and short of what I'm trying to argue here is that we will never be able to solve our social economic issues using a criminal justice lens. The only thing the criminal justice lens does is to make the situation worse, because you've removed that parent, left this child by themselves, you've set this child up for failure. This is the child you will then find in the streets, loitering. Then you will find them, because of loitering, in the juvenile facilities. From juvenile facilities, they will then join adult prisons, and so on and so forth. So there was no justice there in the very first place.
Maybe now, with you explaining that it has a ripple effect from the parents to their children, and even to maybe their various family members who they might have been under their care, maybe what are some of the recommendations that you can give to the respective authorities and the government as a whole to be able to at least take a step into assisting to make things easier and better for the society and also to the affected families of the particular individual who has been incarcerated?
Number one, prison is not a solution for petty offenders. Prison is not a solution for people who are hawking, people who are loitering, people who are unemployed, people who do not have education opportunities, people who have misdemeanors. Prison is not the solution. So, to the authorities, our city council, Kanjo, as we call them, and all the other duty bearers, right holders, we are calling on you. And right now, I wear my hat of being a formerly incarcerated woman, standing in the gap of hundreds and hundreds of other formerly incarcerated women in this country. Arresting us because we were hawking or because we were loitering or any other misdemeanor is not the solution to the problem and the root cause that took me to hawking. So, and to other even higher authorities, let us not apply the criminal justice lens to our social economic issues. If we have youth who are unemployed, the solution is not taking them to industrial area, remand section, or into prison there, because rounding them up and filling those prisons. That is not the solution. Let us find ways in which we can invest in our youth and the many other people who are unemployed, and we're not just talking. As Clean Start, we have set up a textile hub where some of these women come and earn a living, and many other economic empowerment solutions. Because you know what? Even if we go and train them and they don't have a job when they leave prison, they're going to go right back, because they're going to come out, they need food, let's take care of the basic needs of any human being. Food, number one. Then we move to clothing, then we move to shelter. After we have addressed the basic needs of the human being, then we can move to the secondary ones. And we cannot address problems of, those basic needs of a human being. Yeah. We can't address those ones by imprisoning people. They're only going to get more hungrier. They're only going to feel more naked, and so on and so forth. So I'd conclude my long explanation, let's not address socioeconomic issues using the criminal justice approach. The second one, non-custodial sentences are sentences as well. Alternative dispute resolutions are ways to also handle issues in our community. A custodial sentence is not the only way to address a dispute. It's not the only way to punish someone. You can give them a community service order. You can give them a probation sentence, and the probation sentence works. And let the duty bearers and the right holders work together. The judiciary, national police service, the local administration. Let us all work together. If a woman was fighting with another woman, it's not a must that prosecution ensures that that woman has been locked up in prison. She can be given a probation sentence. She will continue taking care of her family, and she will be punished one way or the other as she serves government. Instead of government using taxpayers' money, she works for government for free as she serves her community service order. Tomorrow she's not going to fight with the other woman. Taking her to prison is not the only solution. So let us look for other ways of correcting our misdemeanors. A prison sentence is not the only way of correcting people. Yeah.
Yeah, now moving on swiftly, as Clean Start organization, how do you get to identify formerly incarcerated women and girls, and take us through the process? When you do, what happens? What specific programs do you offer? And how do you try to ensure that you have achieved something positive in their lives that they can too also pass it on to other people in the society?
So we're in this for the long haul. And what we have done is that we have come up with a comprehensive system that works. We call our system the Ufunuo system. Yeah, kufunuka, and to thrive once again. So beginning to end, when we touch that woman while she is in prison, she goes through our Ufunuo system. We've got quite a number of women who have been through our Ufunuo system in various correctional facilities for women. Now, after they have graduated from the Ufunuo system, they then, on the date of release, we've got our women who go to pick those women on the date of release at the prison gate. They then join what we call Sisters on the Outside. That is a movement that we have built, a movement of formerly imprisoned women. It's a coalition of formerly imprisoned women in Africa, actually, because it's not just formerly imprisoned women in Kenya, but in various countries on the African continent as well. When they join the Sisters on the Outside movement, we have what we call chapters. So for instance, we've got the Kisumu chapter, we've got the Homa Bay chapter, we've got the Mombasa chapter, we've got the Wundanyi chapter, the Nakuru chapter, and so on and so forth across the country. In those chapters, they go through various lessons, including advocacy, but most importantly, even as they heal, because prison breaks you. And so in these chapters, when they come together with their other sisters, they are healing, they are finding community, because there's a lot of stigmatization for people coming out of prisons without even wanting to understand what took this woman to prison in the very first place. They can't find work because they can't even get a certificate of good conduct, which is something else we keep wondering. Why is it after I have served my sentence, which means I have paid for the crime that I had committed? So let's say I was hawking, now I've been put into prison. Why is it when I come out, I can't get a certificate of good conduct to enable me find decent work? Because if I can't find that decent employment, what am I going to do? I'm going to hawk. I'm going to find other ways of survival. So it's during those meetings in their chapters that they find what would be best for us to do as a community. Is it starting a salon? Is it starting a restaurant? Is it getting a textile hub? And now Clean Start steps in to support in the formation and search for the capital to run those businesses. And then continue being in touch with them to make sure that they do not go back into prison. So that is how we ensure that decongestion is working, diversion is working, recidivism is low, and also educating community and society that people who come out of prison deserve a second chance. Also, educating society, do not commit this manner of crimes, because we loitered, we hawked, we ended up in prison. So creating awareness in community of what people should not do, so that they do not get, they do not get into the long arm of the law. And then in addition to that, ensuring that people are staying away from the criminal justice system. Yeah.
And now still, as we are continuing to celebrate International Women's Day under the theme Inspire Inclusion, maybe can you share with us a success story of some of the members who have been part of Clean Start and have received the second chance to know that they are not defined by the offenses that they were paying for, but now that they are outside, they can actually now make good out of their future in life?
Indeed, it gives me so much joy. It gives me so much pleasure to celebrate these very resilient, phenomenal women, because I call them trailblazers in the sense that they never had the first chance to begin with. Because if you look at their pathways of how they ended up there, they had dropped out of school because they didn't get opportunities to go to join higher learning. They did not get opportunities for employment. They never had a first chance. They were a victim of sexual gender-based violence. And they were not looked at as a victim. They were not looked at as someone who did not have an opportunity. And Gloria, even as we sentence these women, I think it's important for us to listen to the pathways that led them to that courtroom or to that prison in the very first place. They're not criminals, most of them. But having said that, once they've been through that very traumatizing path of prosecution and then being taken into prisons, which can really, really break you. I want to celebrate, the many women, those who are working in our textile hub, for example. I mean, there are tens of them, who have rebuilt their lives and are earning some decent income through very difficult circumstances, but right now they can make you some amazing Ankara bags, some amazing kimonos, and just beautiful, amazing Ankara stuff that they make at the textile center. There is another lot of women who have trained as tilers, as carpenters, as plumbers, as painters. And as I celebrate these women who have done incredibly well, I want to urge people out there, if you've got jobs, whether you want painters, whether you want tilers, whether you want carpenters, whether you want people who can make some amazing clothing, bags, and so on and so forth, some incredible ladies who do incredible African cuisines. They cook for you and you're like, wow, we've got all these women who are doing all this amazing work, and I celebrate them today. And for people out there, if you would love to make your orders, or you would love to employ them, or you would love to partner with Clean Start, just hit us up at our website, cleanstartafrica.org. Just get in touch with us and let us know that you would like to invest in some of these women, to start a bakery in Nakuru for them, to start a textile center in Mombasa for them, to start an aquaculture for fish farming in Kisumu for them, and so on and so forth. There are so many of these women who are looking for opportunities, even as I celebrate those who are already making an income. Yeah.
And now, even as we're about to wind up, maybe what are some of the long-term goals or short-term goals that you have put in place as Clean Start, maybe to expand and be able to reach out to more people who have been formerly incarcerated?
Okay, so 3 things. First and foremost is definitely investing in these women to be well-skilled, to get these skills in a manner that when they get placed in our economic hubs, they are well, prepared, and they are ready to come and work and produce competitive products. Yeah, so that is one area of investment for our women, for our young girls, and so on and so forth, that we really want to see that we've partnered with the various government agencies and other individual stakeholders, corporates, MSMEs, to see to it that these women have gotten mentorship and training. And then beyond that, we would also want to partner long-term with corporates, MSMEs, individuals, government agencies, to invest in these business production centers that we are coming up with, whether it's textile, whether it's a bakery, whether it's the aquaculture, whether it's the fashion and design, whether it's for the cuisines, investing in these businesses across the country for women and girls who are coming out of prisons to work in those centers. Yeah. And then, of course, the third one is, let us get serious and divert people from ending up within the criminal justice system. It is doable and we can do it. We don't need all these hundreds of people that we're sending to prisons to continue breaking them for no good reason. They don't need to be there. We can invest in them while they're on the outside. So let's invest in diversion and rerouting people to alternative dispute resolutions, to TVETs and other colleges, as opposed to handing these young people sentences. They're not criminals. Just because they don't have a job doesn't amount to the fact that they are a criminal. No. Let's ensure they have joined a TVET somewhere and they're well engaged. And then let's invest in opportunities where they can earn a living, and offer them the proper training that they require. Let's do what we're meant to do and not joke around with people's lives. Yeah, because I believe the government has resources for these citizens of Kenya. We're paying taxes to ensure to see to it that people are well engaged.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, and let's not play around with people's lives just because they are poor and vulnerable. And just because they are poor and vulnerable, we just throw them into prison. No. These are fellow Kenyans. We should care about them. This International Women's Month, we're talking about inspire inclusion. Yeah. Let's include them, And even as we clap and tap our backs and say that we have included, let us think and ask ourselves, who have we not included? Have we thought about the women in prisons? Have we thought about those who are coming out of prisons? Have we thought about those without opportunities? Or we're just sitting comfortably in our spaces and saying, we have inspired inclusion. How? By taking action. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I can see you're so passionate about caring about your fellow brother and sister. And now, as we wind up, maybe to our viewers, how can you maybe advise them on the various societal issues that we face as Kenyans, them also having access to formerly incarcerated people or families that have been affected to that particular thing, and also maybe a word of encouragement to also the affected families, the children who might actually be viewing, and to that particular person who's viewing and they feel like they've lost hope, they have no other clean slate to start life after paying their dues. Just something to encourage them.
What I would say, Gloria, is that, and to our dear listener, is that before we go to judge people and tell them what they should be doing, maybe we could extend some empathy to them. Understand where people are coming from. You might see that woman selling tomatoes in the streets, that girl loitering, doesn't seem to have any direction. Before you bundle them up and throw them up in a van and take them to a cell somewhere, try and understand, why is this woman putting her potatoes in the middle of the road? And I'm not advocating for lawlessness. Even I want order in our cities. Yeah, even I want orders, and I understand we need a city that is clean and that is full of order. But can we get to understand what desperation has led this person here? Extend some empathy to them. And it's the same thing I will say to someone out there in a corporate organization, someone who is wondering, for International Women's Month, what do we do? There are many organizations you can partner with. Clean Start is one of those, where you can come, partner with us, and we will show you how your corporate can extend their celebration for International Women's Month with women who have never been included, children who have been forgotten, children who are truly by themselves because their parent is incarcerated. And is incarcerated not because they are a criminal, but because they were trying to fend for those very children. Young girls without opportunities for education who genuinely need a second chance. And we will show you how to inspire inclusion, how to invest in women, girls and children, and how to accelerate progress. And if you have been impacted one way or the other, whether it's by the criminal justice system or by poverty or the high unemployment rates have really eaten into you. You know, these days we are throwing around the word hustler very carelessly, you know. Indeed, you truly do not have some decent means of livelihood. I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you and tell you that, you know what? Search for organizations like Clean Start or many others within the society who have offered of themselves to collaboratively with other government agencies, faith-based organizations, you know, do something to make it better for those who truly don't have opportunities and they need those opportunities. But for those who have those opportunities, let's truly stop talking much and get to doing, because the future belongs to the doers. We can talk all we want, but the future belongs to the doers. Yeah.
Thank you so much. This was such an interactive and informative discussion. I feel like we've not even debunked half of everything that we'd have had in this discussion. Thank you so much for coming, and I celebrate you once again. Happy International Women's Day, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us, and thank you for voicing the voices of imprisoned and formerly imprisoned women.
Thank you so much. Now with that, we take a short commercial break, then we'll be back with the business news.